What is going on, everybody? What a massive Sunday slate that we had in the NFL. Week 2 treated us good. We are up 3.2 units on Sunday. Real big bounce back from the Thursday night game, which we did not do very well. But we got a rare doubleheader on Monday here. We got the Bucks Texans and the Chargers Raiders. Let me swing back over to the Bucks Texans here. Pretty good offenses. Obviously, the Bucks are a little injured. No Godwin. And then the Texans, struggling with their front. Nick Chubb didn't really get going. Nico Collins had like 20 yards. And then you don't have Tank Dell anymore. So definitely struggling here on the Texans side as well. With that, in the Tuesday early predictions, we did take the Bucks money line. That is still sitting at plus odds. Has lowered down a little bit. I believe it was 3.5 when we looked, or 3. So a little bit in favor of the Bucks, but definitely hasn't moved much. I do still like that Bucks money line. I just think, Igbuka, they got, Mike Evans still there. They got Otten going. The Bucks defense looks a little better than what we saw from the Texans in week 1. And then the Texans offense just could not get anything rolling. CJ Stroud didn't look very settled. Like I said, Chubb couldn't move. Nico Collins got 20 yards. I mean, it wasn't a good game for the Texans. So I feel a little better back in the Bucks in this one. We'll see how this game plays out, but I do like the Bucks money line still. We took that in our futures pick last Tuesday, so that is still a pick here for this game. And then we got 2 player props in this one. If we take a look here, it shows you your last, what they're averaging. Obviously, it's week 2, so this was just last week. Baker Mayfield, 167 yards, averaged 250 last season. I think we see him come out here and throw the ball a little bit more against this team. I think he's going to have the ability to. I think this is going to be a good game for them, passing back and forth, be a pretty competitive game where they don't have to, one team's not getting completely slaughtered, where they all go to the run game. So I do like the Baker Mayfield over 232 yards here. Real week 1. So WEAK. Real week 1. So for Baker there. So I do think he kind of bounces back here and is able to get those yards. And then next up, like I had said, I think Nico Collins' line is just way too high. 80 yards going off 25. CJ Stroud's not. He's definitely a good quarterback. We saw, glimpses of that, but he's not like a sit in the pocket and just sling it passer. He moves. They get the run game involved. They definitely have their pieces. And now with Nico, your next receiving options, Dalton Schultz, it doesn't exactly spread the field. So the Bucks are definitely going to be, double or, pinching a safety towards Nico on those zone coverages. So 80 yards for him, I just feel like a little too high to back that. And then Evans and Igbuka, Igbuka came out and, lit up the field last game, 67 yards. You don't know if that kind of takes away. If they get, 60 yards apiece, I don't know which receiver to back. I don't mind either one's over yardage, but I just don't know which one. So I'm staying away from that. And then another prop I almost got into, but we'll head on over. The rushing yards. The Bucky Irving yards, just 37 last year. He was averaging a pretty good backing, getting the reps. The only thing that, doesn't make me all that thrilled is he only gets 14 attempts in their week 1 game. And I'm expecting a very similar competitive score in this game. And he's not getting a ton of attempts. And he only turned that into, 3 yards a carry, 3.5 yards a carry. So, it wasn't exactly explosive in that week 1. And the Texans definitely able to hold the run a little bit better. Not insane. They're a pretty middle of the road defense, but I do like the Nick Chubb over 49.5 yards here. I think he's just going to be their workhorse. Like I said, they had CJ Stroud, that Texans offense. They like to, methodically, they like to stretch the field. They go to the run a couple times every 4 downs, and then CJ will throw it, scramble. I just think Chubb's definitely going to get the touches here, and I think he's going to be able to, turn those into good yardage. Vita Vea, definitely a factor in that Buck side. defensive line. But if we know it, they know it. I think they're going to, put 2 onto him to kind of move, open up those holes in the middle, or, just kind of run the opposite direction of him. He's not the quickest, if we say so. So I like the over 49.5. That's going to be our 3 plays for the Bucs-Texans game. Bucs money line straight up. Baker Mayfield over 232.5 passing yards. And Nick Chubb over 49.5 rushing yards. Swinging over to the Chargers and the Raiders. This one's a tough one on the game line picks. I do like the Chargers. I wish that was 2.5, but obviously the juice just gets cooked when you put it at minus 2.5. I can swing that on here just so you guys can see it, but minus 150. I don't love that. I do think the Chargers win here, hoping by, a 4-point differential. That's kind of what we're backing here. I want to stay away from the over-under. I could definitely see this being a 20-28 game, something like that. Something weird, 21-28, however they want to work it out. But I can certainly see this being both teams in the 20s, which would really put this at risk for an under. And then over, I mean, if we get a 24-21, that's going to be a brutal way to go. But like I said, I can definitely see this being a little closer. I'd rather have, them winning by 4. I can see, 17-24 or something like that. I just don't know which side I would take here. So we're going minus 3.5 for the Chargers. Both of these quarterbacks came out slinging in that week 1. 318 for Herbert. He averaged about 260 last year. Geno Smith, 362. Passes a little bit more than Herbert. Definitely gets the attempts in naturally every game, but still, I mean, you don't see 362 yards consistently out of Geno Smith. Probably seen a little bit of regression here on these guys. Now, with that, we do have, now as of this time, I don't know if Brock Bowers is certainly playing. He's been questionable all week. I don't believe he practiced Thursday. So, don't know if he's going to be limited. Don't know how impactful or how, good to go he's going to be here. So, I do like the Myers yardage here, because if it's not Brock Bowers, it's not Jakobi Meyers. I mean, there's not really a lot of other big names here to throw to. And I do think, the Chargers defense is one of the best in the NFL. They were number 1 ranked team in points allowed last year, so they had the fewest points allowed. They were number 1 there. Still a pretty good core. Obviously, getting rid of Bosa, that you're going to feel the effects there, but they're still a solid defense. We saw that in week 1. They came out and handled business. I do think we see a regression from Geno Smith. I don't think Brock Bowers is going to have another 100-yard game. Granted, Jakobi Meyers did as well, but Bowers probably a little bit more limited. You're going to look to Myers a little bit more. I'm taking his over 60.5 there. I like the McConkey one, but again, I mean, Geno's one who's still going to throw. Justin, scrambles more, might run to the run more. I could see him getting 200 yards here. I don't know if 75 of those go to Ladd McConkey. That's the only thing. And then obviously, I mean, we had Keenan Allen getting quite a bit of yards. We had Quentin Johnston turning back the clock. Conklin at 50. I mean, we just don't know. There might be a good spread. I mean, 75 to 50 yards between 4 different receivers. That's quite the spread. That doesn't really give you a clear option for Herbert. So I think I'm going to stay away from the receiving props for the Chargers until we see how he really shakes out. Now, an interesting one here, and you'll see why I picked what I did. Ashton Jeanty. He had 38 yards last game. He caught 1 pass for 2 yards. They're expecting his rushing to be 67 yards, but his rushing receiving to add another 26 yards on top of that when he only got 2 yards last week. Just very evident. I mean, Geno Smith threw for 362 yards, and only 2 yards of those went to Ashton Jeanty. 1 reception. For him to expect to get another 25 yards on top of what they're expecting him to rush for, just kind of seems weird in a game that I'm expecting Geno Smith to have a little bit of regression on the run game. Now, obviously, we look at, Marion Hampton. He got 15 more yards, so this makes sense. He has 16-yard difference or 18-yard difference between his rushing and his here. He got 16 or 13 yards receiving last game. I mean, that makes sense. But when you go from, he only received 2 receiving yards last game for Jeanty, I don't know if I'm really backing the fact that he's going to get an extra 24 here. So I am going to take his under rushing and receiving. Obviously, that does open the door for him to, he could get 100 yards rushing, and then this would be a problem. But I could definitely see him getting 60, 70, maybe even 80 yards rushing and just not being involved in the pass game. So that's why I'm going to bump it up to 90 and take the under. Essentially, I'm just getting good odds to kind of take his under 90.5 on rushing. I don't think he's going to be a factor in the passing game for them to bump this line quite a bit. Obviously, could be wrong, but 360 yards from your quarterback and you get 2 of those makes me believe that you're not going to be a huge factor going forward in their run game. But that's going to be our Chargers Raiders. Let's keep it going. Like I said, we're up 3.2 units after Sunday. Monday night, let's keep it going. Bounce back from our disaster Thursday. We got 3 picks here. Under 90.5 for Ashton Jeanty, rushing and receiving. Over 60.5, Jakobi Meyers receiving, and LA Chargers to cover the -3.5. Let me know if you guys are tailing. See.